Exec. Tuesday, 17th of May, Parish Assembly asking parishioners to come and vote on fellow Reform Party member Deputy Jeff Southern's proposition to stop the Infrastructure Minister, Eddie Knoll, from privatising all the TTS services without state's approval. Can you tell us what's going on here?
Yeah, well, basically Reform Jersey for a while now has had serious concerns about what Deputy Eddie Knoll is trying to do to our infrastructure services. He's announced that he's going to attempt to privatise as much of it as possible. Potentially that could mean hundreds of workers out of jobs here, many of them who've served for decades, highly skilled at what they do, professionals who will be potentially unemployed. And if they are lucky enough to continue to be employed, probably on 0 hours contracts and much lower wages than they are now. But he's following a path which has been tried and tested in many parts of the UK, often under Conservative local authority control, who have suddenly found out 10 years down the line that actually outsourcing services like this, rather than having them in-house, ends up being much more expensive and less reliable than it does to have it controlled by the centre. So we think as a policy to be pursuing, it's not been thought out properly, but worst of all, it's actually the opposite of what he said he was going to do when he stood for TTS Minister. So we've been speaking to many of these workers who are incredibly worried, and they feel like the debate is simply not being had properly, which is part of why they have already voted to take strike action on this. We've been trying to stop this from happening. We've been trying to get these people round the table so that we can have a proper, meaningful negotiation to make sure that the public gets good value for money in its services, but that it doesn't damage the quality of the services that we rely on. So we're holding a public meeting, a parish assembly in St Helier, for any of these people to come along, whether you're somebody who works for TTS, whether you're a concerned member of the public, to come, have your say. We'll debate all of the issues. It'll be a full and frank discussion, and then we'll have a vote at the end to advise Constable St Helier, the 10 deputies and the senators of what the parishioners of St Helier think about this. And we're hoping it will send a message out to the government that they really need to stop and think about this, because they could end up wasting the public tens of millions of pounds pursuing something that they never said they were going to do. So it's about bringing democracy back to the grassroots level and empowering people.
And again, well, it's because you're using this parish assembly. How do you go about it? It's an ancient law or something, how you could manage to do this?
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people don't realise this, but there is a law from 1804 called La Loi au sujet des assemblées parisiennes, which empowers ordinary people in a parish, if 10 of them get together and sign a request for a proposition to be debated at a parish assembly, so long as it is a proposition that can be debated by a parish assembly, the constable is obliged to hold this meeting. It must happen, and there must be a vote at the end. They don't have a say in it. Ordinary people can force their constables to debate a proposition.
But let me just pop back in there, if I may. There's nothing stopping the constable, is there, bringing this parish assembly on his own? He shouldn't have to be forced to do it, should he?
And that's an incredibly important point, because this goes back over 200 years. In 1771, which is when the sort of beginnings of Jersey's constitution were drawn up, one of the rules that was in place was that if a proposition is brought to the States, it can't be debated for 4 weeks, so that States members have an opportunity to do their research, to engage with people and find out what the issues are so that they can make an informed decision when it comes to the States. That 4 weeks exists so that constables are meant to be holding public meetings with their parishioners to find out what they think. When was the last time that happened?
I don't know. I don't know of any, to be honest with you.
Exactly. I can't recall it happening anytime recently. And so I think because the system exists for this to happen, it's right that ordinary people should be forcing their constables to do this. They should be doing it of their own volition, but they're not. And when we've got a situation where 11 out of 12 constables were elected uncontested, a lot of the deputies were elected uncontested, and there's huge dissatisfaction amongst the public about what the government is doing at the moment.
Well, just sorry, but I don't like to butt in again. But of course, it was the committee de connotables that brought a proposition asking for 10 signatures to bring. It used to be you only needed 4 signatures. So we've got 11 unelected politicians bringing such undemocratic propositions to the place.
Yeah, well, exactly. And the chairman of the Comité de Connotables, Constable Len Norman, has recently in the States said that the parish system is a beacon of democracy across the world. It's a direct democracy. Anybody can come and vote and debate and have their say. Yet at the same time, the constables, most of whom weren't elected, have put forward a proposition to say, no, you need 10 people to sign this request rather than 4, when this process is not being abused. There's no evidence that people are doing this for the wrong reasons. It's only ever done for legitimate democratic reasons. They've deliberately got in the way to try and make it more difficult to hold them to account. Now, from a democratic point of view, that's wrong, because parish assemblies are meant to exist to hold your constables to account, and they're making it harder for that to happen. But the great thing is, this is the 21st century, where we've got population of 100,000 people, large amount of them are on social media, and in Reform Jersey, this is part of the reason we're doing it this way, is we think that actually, whilst it's harder to get 10 signatures than it is 4 signatures, it's not that difficult if you put your mind to it. We've all got neighbours, we've all got family. It's not difficult to get 10 people in a parish to sign a request forcing a constable to bring a public issue to debate. So we're saying to the public, this law exists. You probably didn't know it exists, but it does exist. And anybody who wants any help at all in forcing a debate in their parish, come speak to us and we'll help you. Because there isn't enough public debate on the important issues facing the islands today, but there is a mechanism of forcing this to happen from a grassroots level, led by ordinary people, not led by politicians. And this is a great way of saying, let's do this, let's hold these people to account, and let's use this law against them and make them do what they should be doing anyway.
Use a democratic process. So I suppose, the argument is going to be, one of the arguments is going to be, if the government has been elected and is carrying out its programme, what good does it do to hold these meetings or assemblies, especially given there is a non-binding, that's very important, there's a non-binding vote at this. So basically, because we've experienced it ourselves, I've called one of these parish assemblies myself, all signed, and we all voted. In fact, it was when Senator Philip Parish hijacked the Electoral Commission. We held a parish assembly, and all those that voted in favour to have an independent electoral commission. But of course, our constable, Len Norman, and Susie Pinnell went totally against what the parishioners had voted that night, saying that it's not proportional representative of the parish. So what is the point of this?
Well, and that argument that it's not representative can be put forward for any example of a vote in Jersey. Many of these states members were elected by nobody because they were uncontested, so then surely you can argue that every vote they cast in the States Assembly is illegitimate on that basis. All parish assemblies have a pretty poor turnout, and all states elections have a pretty poor turnout. The government we have at the moment is pursuing an entire government programme which they lied to the public about before the election. Ian Gorst stood up during his election and said, vote for me and I'll reduce public spending and I won't raise your taxes. The week after he got elected, he began building a government programme based on continuing to waste taxpayers' money and increasing taxes on ordinary working people. So the whole government was elected based on lies. Now, I think that the public, whenever they are capable of doing so, should make that point and should have opportunities like a public parish assembly to stand up and say, well, since you didn't tell us the truth before you were elected, now let's use this as an opportunity to get the truth out there. Let ordinary people many of them who will be professionals who work in the industry to do with the topic that's being debated, can come forward and say, no, the government is wrong on this, here are the facts, let people hear the arguments and inform themselves, and then they'll have a vote at the end based on whether they support or oppose it. Now, it's right that that vote isn't binding on the politicians to follow it, because politicians are representatives, not delegates. They are ultimately free to vote how they choose. But I think it would be important to have on public record before every election how many times the representatives of that parish voted against their own electorate. So if your electorate are coming out to meetings and overwhelmingly saying, we oppose what you're trying to do, and you continue to do it, you can use that so the public are able to know basically who broke their promises when they were in government, and they can use that to do what Guernsey has done this week, which has thrown out a whole bunch of politicians who weren't delivering. And that's what this is about. It's about saying to the public, come here face to face with these people and let them know that you disapprove of what they're trying to do. And if they continue to be arrogant and ignore the people who put them in power, we can use the next election to say, you're out, you're gone, we're voting for somebody who will stick to their promises next time, because that's what democracy should be all about.
So if you could just remind us, Sam, when and where is this meeting, assembly?
It's penciled in at the moment for the 17th of May, 7 o'clock at the Town Hall. If anything changes, we'll release that information and let the public know. But that's it in the next coming weeks. So that's an opportunity for people in St Helier to come out and make their voice heard. And we're hoping to do it in other parishes as well, but we'll of course keep the public up to date on that.